Okay, on this episode of Death by Bunjie, I'm going to give you some tips on sighting in your crossbow for the upcoming hunting season. I'm getting ready to go to Maryland here in a couple of days, so this weekend what I'm doing is setting up my crossbow, making sure it's still spot on. I had used Bunjie as recently as this past May for shooting a groundhog during the spring gobbler season here in northeastern Pennsylvania. That was the last time I pulled the trigger with Bunjie. Normally what I do is I unstring it over the off season and then put it back together and shoot it in the fall just to give those limbs a good rest. So I've gotten it back out and I've been shooting it. I want to go over some quick tips about what I have found useful. I want to start with one important factor. When we're talking about sighting in your crossbow, we are talking about accuracy. So it's really the most important step in this entire process of preparing your crossbow to go out there and hunt. Because accuracy is everything. Accuracy is what kills animals. It is that hitting the vitals the way that you want to hit them and having the confidence that that's going to happen when you pull the trigger. That's what makes hunting fun. That's what makes you successful. So make sure that you're setting yourself up for that to happen. Now, to do that, for me, this is entirely a process of elimination. I just want to eliminate all the other possibilities so that I know when I pull the trigger, if the shot is right, it's to my credit. If the shot goes bad, it was the user, the operator error. It was my fault that the shot went bad. I want to eliminate all the other possibilities, equipment-related possibilities, yardage-related possibilities, string-related, broadhead-related, arrow-related possibilities, so that it's reducing all the other opportunities for failure and increasing the likelihood of success. So elimination is the key. The first thing you're going to want to do is get a good rangefinder. If you're just sighting in your crossbow, that's fine to just measure it out. Don't rely on how many steps you are from the target, because that tells you nothing. Nobody can take exactly 3-foot long steps. Don't fool yourself. You have to have a rangefinder. You have to have some manner of measuring the distance from the target. You got to know that when you're using the 10-yard reticle on your crossbow that you are actually 10 yards from the target. If you don't know that for sure, you haven't eliminated the possibility that that's the problem. So you really can't start from there, fix the problem if you don't know what the problem is going to be, if you haven't eliminated those other possibilities. Start with a good rangefinder. Your crossbow should come with some manufacturer's instructions on how to sight it in. I would follow those instructions. If it doesn't, go to a dealership in your area and have them give you some tips, some pointers on how to go and sight it in. Follow those tips. Use what I'm telling you here as to build on that, and just for what it's worth, this is how I do it, but it may not be appropriate for your crossbow. Generally speaking, what I do when I sight in, I just start at 10 yards, make sure I'm dead on at 10 yards. Then I move back to exactly 20 yards because that's the way I want my reticles set up in my scope. At 20 yards, then I fire a few shots to make sure I'm dead on there. I'm adjusting my windage, I'm adjusting my elevation, using the turrets, using the screws on the turrets on the scope, just like you would a rifle scope, just like the manufacturer suggests for my Excalibur. I make those adjustments until I'm dead on at 20, then I move out to 30, 40, etc. I only sight into 40 yards. I cannot fathom taking a shot beyond 40 yards with a crossbow. To me, 40 yards just seems so far away from a target that I don't think I would take that shot. 30 yards, I've only taken a couple of 30-yard shots in my whole life. And beyond, most of them are 20 yards or less, it seems like, the shots that I take while hunting. But I sight into 40 anyway. One of the reasons you want to sight in and clear out to 40 yards is any error in accuracy is going to be magnified the farther away you are from the target. That's human error, but that's also equipment. So one of the things I found useful is when I am all the way out at 40 yards and pulling the trigger, if it's going in 3 shots and all 3 of them go low left, I know the scope's probably off a little bit. I need to make some adjustments. Those adjustments may not show up perfectly at 20 yards, but if I make a little bit of an adjustment at 40 yards, it'll be even more on at 20 yards, right? So when I go and hunt at 20 yards, I know that when I'm pulling the trigger on the deer, I have that absolute confidence. And that, in the end, is what this is all about. You want absolute 100% confidence when you pull the trigger on your crossbow that that arrow is going to go where you want it to go. So for that reason, sighting in the crossbow is an important step, but it's just the first step in this whole process. You got to make sure when you're sitting in your tree stand that you know how far away that deer is. Don't put the don't just guess and use a 20-yard pin when it's might be 10 yards away. It's going to make a huge difference in the end. It can make all the difference between finding that deer or spending the whole night in the woods and being disappointed in the end. So to make sure that you don't have that problem, get a rangefinder, or at a minimum borrow someone's rangefinder, use it and mark out different spots, different trees from your tree stand, different spots on the ground from your ground blind, whatever, what have you, so that you know when you go in there and hunt how far away that deer is going to be, and you know that you can have 100% confidence that your shot's going to go where you want it to go. And what I'm going to do is show you some footage actually that was shot last year when I was sighting in the Crossbow, getting ready for the season last year. That footage never made its way onto the Death by Bunjie channel here onto the show because I never did this video, but we'll use that footage now and it will work out just fine. Okay, so far I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. I've got the vertical set up perfectly. Happy with that. I brought it back down. It was shooting a little high. Now I've got to adjust it just a little bit to the left to get it so it's shooting right in the bullseye at 10 yards. It's a problem not only because of the brand new scope, but also because of the new string. The new string is still stretching. It hasn't been on the Crossbow before, unlike my other string where I'd used it and it just was resting. The goal is to finish up sighting it in at 10 yards, get it perfect. Then I'm going to move back to 10 or to 20 to 30, 40, 50, maybe take a shot at 50, who knows. But the key is this is just preliminary because hunting season doesn't start right away. I've got a little bit more time to properly do this, and that's what I'll do. I'll make sure it's sighted in now. I'm going to let it rest a couple of days, further stretch that string, and then I'll come back, tighten up the string again, and get this thing sighted in and dialed in at each of those yardages. A couple things you're going to want to make sure that you do before you start sighting in your Crossbow. You have to make sure of a couple of things. One is you need a good solid surface to rest your Crossbow on so that you can be sure that the Crossbow remains steady, and be sure that if there's an error in the shot and any inaccuracy, that it's a result of the Crossbow, something you can adjust instead of, well, maybe I moved the Crossbow a little bit. So don't try and do it freehand. Either get yourself this. I use a Caldwell Dead Shot Field Pod. It served me well. I bought it. Could use this to hunt out of a blind. I haven't, but you could. Pretty handy little piece of equipment. I just leave it here for when I'm sighting in my Crossbow and it's ready to go. You don't need this. You can use a sawhorse, which I did for a couple of years. I just shot off sawhorses. Set the chair right up to it, put the thing, you just need something that's going to hold it nice and steady so that you're sure that if the shot goes bad, it's a result of the Crossbow and not your steadiness or anything like that. Make sure that you've got arrows, they're all the same weight. Make sure you've got the proper weighted field points. I'm using 100 grain here because my broadheads that I hunt with are 100 grain. I use the Exact, and that's 100 grains. Right now, I don't know that you might want to weigh them. I found arrows, once you put a broadhead on it, that weigh a little bit different, within 10-20 grains sometimes, and that can affect your accuracy. You want to get all your arrows. I recommend that you weigh them. I've weighed all of mine. I know these are all in the same, within a few grains of each other. All my arrows have Luminox on them because that extra weight can affect your accuracy. So I just make sure I've got arrows that all pretty much weigh the same. They're all really, really close. When I hunt, I select 4 arrows to put in the quiver that are exactly the same in terms of grains, within 2 grains, within 3 grains, usually less than 2. The entire rig, I weigh them out. And that way I'm guaranteeing as much accuracy as possible there. But when you're target practicing, it certainly doesn't make sense to use 150 grain field point and then 100 grain field point, because that can affect your accuracy. It may or may not, but it's certainly, you don't want to have to rule that out. You want to rule it out ahead of time so that if there's errors as you're sighting in, it's a result of that Crossbow, that something needs to be adjusted, and it's not the arrows that you're using. You just want to eliminate things for problems. I hope you found all this helpful. I hope that you have a great, successful hunting season, and until next time, all hail Bunjie.
Out of the eater, something sweeter. Out of the strong, something to eat.
Well, I wonder, can you tell by looking at this target which side I shoot the broadheads at to test it? There's the one side, and there's the other side. Which one do you think I shoot the broadheads at?